In this video, we're going to compare Mars Hydro LED grow lights for the 5x5 grow tent. I've got the FC-6500 here, the FCE-6500 here, and the FC-8000 here. We're going to compare all their specs and talk about the real world experiences that I've had growing with all three lights here in my house. Let's go.
What your kids know about the 420 vaves? Every day I wake up and I get stoned.
What's up, everyone? If you're new to my channel, my name is Troy. I review cannabis vaporizers at 420vapozone.com. I also review other cannabis products, including grow stuff. I grow with the sponsored grow tent from Mars Hydro, and Mars has sent these grow lights to power my 5x5 grow tent. I've been growing in the same space with multiple 5x5 grow tents, and these three grow lights that are designed for the 5x5. About this comparison, I've been growing with two 5x5s here in the same room with these three lights. I've done a bunch of dry runs to get some temperature data, and I've done a few harvests with each light as well. I'm not gonna go over a bunch of yield data here because I don't think that my grows have been scientific enough to really make the yield data worth sharing. So I'm only really gonna share my opinions about my experience and the data about the specs, okay? So I'll go over the individual lights independently first, and then I'll do kind of the comparison and the differences at the end. If you want to skip around, the chapters are here, probably on the screen, maybe right now, or maybe they already went by, but they should be in the description as well if you want to skip around. And then this comparison and the specs are really well presented on my website as well. So if you want to hit up my website, it's much easier to follow along there. So let's start with the FC-6500. The FC-6500 was the first of these three, so this is the precursor. These two lights are newer than the 6500. The 6500 folds in the middle. It is 730 actual watts at the wall. It is $739 at the time of making this video, and that price has fluctuated a little bit. It has 2,688 Samsung LEDs on it, and those LEDs are distributed across 8 of these bars in the foldable frame. The driver and the control dimmable panel can be mounted elsewhere to get some heat out of your tent, and then you can daisy chain the 6500 with a bunch of lights if you have like a warehouse and you want to have a big grow room with multiples. One panel can dim all of them or turn them all off and on independently. In fact, all three of these lights have that feature, and I'll probably have to say it again. The FCE-6500 has 6 of these quantum style boards, these LED boards in a bar style frame. So you can see here, it's just a square system that I had to install myself. It comes with 2 bars and 6 LED bars. It's 730 watts and it has 3,546, I think, LEDs, and those LEDs are the Bridge Lux brand. The FCE-6500 is a cheaper version of the 6500. At the time of making this video, it is $599. It's also 730 watts, actual watts from the wall, but it has a lot more LEDs. This one uses Bridge Lux LEDs. Bridge Lux LEDs are not as efficient or as efficacious or whatever. It has 3,546 LEDs, which is more LEDs, and they're distributed across 6 bars instead of 8. All the rest of them have 8 bars. This one only has 6. And of course, the driver and the dimmable panel is removable, mountable somewhere else. You can mount it right on top here. It comes with the hardware. All of these come with the hardware to mount the driver and the dimmable thing right on the frame as well. I just mount them separately because I want to keep the heat outside of my tent. It will technically fit in the footprint of a 4x4. You can put it inside of a 4x4 and hang it inside of a 4x4 tent, but it's made for a 5x5 tent or a commercial grow. All right, so let's bust into the FC-8000. The FC-8000 is the largest and the most powerful light that Mars Hydro currently offers. At the time of making this video, it is $830, and the FC-8000 is 800 actual wall watts. The FC-8000 has 2,968 LEDs, and they are distributed across 8 of these bars all the way across. It's a mix of Samsung diodes and Osram diodes. Don't know why I said all those words so weirdly. All 8 of these bars are adjustable. You can move them around to different positions on the frame just by loosening the thumb screws and sliding them around. The hardware is easier on the 8000 than it is on the FCE-6500. It is possible that Mars Hydro has upgraded the hardware on the FCE-6500 to match the ease of use on the FC-8000, but I can't guarantee that. I don't know that. So in the similarities, all 3 of these lights are going to fill a 5x5 grow tent very nicely. All of them are available on Amazon.com as well as MarsHydro.com. You can use code TT420 to save a couple bucks on MarsHydro.com. All 3 of these lights have a 5-year warranty and a 50,000 hour expectancy on the LEDs. That's average. And if you do the math on operating at 18 hours a day, these lights will last about 8 years, 7.5 years. Obviously, if you grow at a 24-hour growing schedule, your lights are going to last less long. And if you grow at like 12 hours a day, your lights may last longer. And if you only grow half a year, like I do, I can only grow half a year, my lights should last like 10, 12, 16 years maybe. Who knows? Probably not. Probably not. As I said before, all of the driver hardware on all 3 of these, you can remove it, you can mount it elsewhere. None of them come assembled, except for this one, the 6500 comes assembled, but you still have to mount the driver and the dimmable thing to the light. But the other ones, they already come separate, so I just chose to mount them outside of the tent. And the cables are all long enough to do that. They all come with a long cable, and those cables can unplug, so you can mount the stuff outside, run the plug in, and then plug it into your light. So it's really nice. They really did a good job on these. Now let's get into the differences. So the differences that I'm going to talk about today are real world growing differences that I have noticed while growing with these lights. I'm not able to do the PAR tests. I don't have the time, the talent, the technology, the titties. I just don't do it. I trust Dr. MJ Coco at cocoforcannabis.com. He tests all lights extremely thoroughly. He does the PAR tests. He does all kinds of really cool tests. And he has a really cool calculator on his website as well. He ranks all 3 of these lights extremely high, and the 8000 is one of his top lights. And I highly encourage you to check out his website or his videos on YouTube if you want more technical analysis on light comparisons. The differences that I'm able to talk about are a little more real world. I've been growing here in the same environment with multiple 5x5 tents with identical equipment in the same space. And I've been able to like swap lights and move them around just to compare what the differences are. I haven't really got into the point where I'm comparing yields. So if you're expecting yield analysis or things like that, I've got nothing for you. I'm sorry. All 3 of these lights have produced massive yields for me, to the point where I've had to like cut back. I've had to like give away. A 5x5 with this much power produces a lot. But the biggest difference that I have seen, that I've noticed growing with all 3 of these lights and swapping them back and forth to confirm, is heat. The FCE-6500, this one produces more heat from the light itself than the other 2. And it's because the LEDs, there's more LEDs. They're a cheaper brand of LED. They're the Bridge Lux LEDs versus the Samsung LEDs on the other one. And they're more densely packed, and they're distributed across 6 bars instead of 8. So the FC-6500 has more LEDs, and they're more tightly packed on less bars. So these bars are going to get hotter than the bars of the other 2 lights. It doesn't make a huge difference, but in my grow, it's about 8 degrees, and that can be huge. Like, I can manage it. I can squeeze out, like I can use the AC a little bit more, or I can, turn up the exhaust fan and just pump more air out. But to me, it's unnecessary when for $100 more or a little bit more, you get a little bit less heat with the same or better light output. So for me, out of these three, the FCE-6500 is kind of my least favorite light because it produces the most heat. In terms of the foldable frame, I'm a big fan of the foldable frame. Although you gotta be careful so you don't pinch your nipples back here in the little clamp thing. The foldable frame is really easy to move in and out of the tent for hanging. If you ever have to reposition your light, it's nice. If you ever have to travel with your light, it's great. Taking these apart, putting them in the car, putting them back together at another person's house, transporting them, it's a little tedious. They do a good job of making it easy. They're using thumb screws on the back to mount the bars, because they're essentially just two bars on top and bottom with the light bars screwing in. So if you're gonna travel at all, or if you plan to take your light down and put it back up in between grows, the FC-6500 by far is the easiest to do so. And the lights, when they clamp together, the LEDs are facing each other. So it's relatively not fragile. Like, you can pick this up and kind of manhandle it without worrying about it. If you pack cardboard around it, you don't have to worry about it. Meanwhile, with these, you got a bunch of individual pieces once you take it apart, and they're fragile. You got to be careful with those LEDs. You got to make sure that you're not banging around too much. And one of the biggest differences between the three is the FC-8000, the 800 watt big guy back here. This thing puts out a lot of light, a lot. It's actually more light than a regular cannabis canopy can photosynthesize without the use of supplemental CO2. So if you're growing in a 5x5 and you're not pumping CO2 in your tent, chances are, if you crank your FC-8000 to 100%, you're gonna burn your lights, or you're gonna burn your plants. Your plants are not able to utilize all of the light that this light is actually producing. When I grew with this, I only ran it at like 85%. And even then, I got some light burn. I got some light burn on my plants. The FC-8000 does run hotter than the FC-6500, but it doesn't run as hot as the FCE-6500. The FCE-6500, with all those densely packed LEDs, really cranks up the heat. So my choice, if it wasn't obvious, is the FC-6500. This light is the nicest of the three. It feels the most finished. The edges of the bars are folded in on their own. It just feels like a refined, nice piece of equipment. These feel a little bit more like LED bars strapped to a piece of aluminum rail, and they 3D printed some end caps. The FC-8000 is a little more refined than the FCE-6500 with the hardware, but still, the FC-6500 for me is the nicest. And as far as yields, I know everybody's gonna be asking about yields. I put out more than 2 pounds per 5x5 grow easily, and all of my grows had enough mistakes for me to not want to tell you about the actual yield. Like my recent pheno hunt that I did with the pineapple sundae, I got like 3 pounds, and it's way more than I need. It's way more than I need, way more than I want of that strain. I ended up with another pound of the blueberry kush, and that was just 4 plants. These lights can really put out some massive yields. I don't want to give you any false information about which one is more capable, and I think they're all three very capable. I don't know that there are differences between the Samsung and the Osram and the Bridge Lux in terms of their light spectrum. There could be some things in there that may affect certain terpene production, or I don't know. There's a lot of science that we just don't have the data for yet, because cannabis is still illegal and we're not really able to fully test some of these things. So looking forward to learning more. Leave a comment down below, especially if you have questions, comments. Join the Discord. 420 Vape Zone Discord is a hop-in community for cannabis smokers and growers and vaporists, dab heads, you name it, we're all there. Thanks Mars Hydro for sponsoring my channel, sending me these lights. Really cool shit. Make sure you like this video if you found any value in it, and subscribe if you haven't. Check out the other videos on the channel if you're into more vape content. Drink plenty of water, wear your sunglasses when you're in the grow room, all those good things. Come on.